Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to the audience, of course, for listening. It's Bernd Krüper, President and Director, and I'm accompanied by my colleague, as you said, Kevin Unrath. Welcome, first time also here with us presenting dynaCERT. Kevin is the COO and the MD of our European subsidiary and GmbH. And of course, a lot of you guys know already dynaCERT, but for the new ones, or listening it first time, we explain a little bit what is dynaCERT. Therefore, dynaCERT is a greenhouse company. We have an electrolysis unit, which is an upgrade kit for combustion engines. Means with a small electrolysis function, you put in distilled water to the box. With that, you get separated hydrogen and oxygen on demand. That means it's connected to the engine. What does it do? It reduces significantly fuel and significantly pollution and emission. With that, you have, of course, better TCOs and life cycle costs reductions. And we are working on the process of applying for the generation of carbon credit. Company itself is based in Ontario, in Toronto, and as I said, also having here in Munich, where we are at the moment, a European setup. And Kevin will explain what's the product about and which applications.
Thank you, Bernd. Hello, everybody. I will explain throughout the next slides our product a little bit and try to give you an understanding what we are doing. On this slide, you can see our mission, and we call it, we transform technology into customer value. So what is the technology in the background? It's an on-demand hydrogen production system, which is running directly on, if we talk about a truck, or next to, if we talk about a generator or things like this, to the equipment. Basically, it is producing out of an alkaline and distilled water, H2 and O2, so hydrogen and pure oxygen. We are not separating it at the end because we use both. We use the hydrogen and we use the oxygen. What differentiates us from other hydrogen solutions is that at the end of the day, we do not need a storage. And as I said, as we are producing on demand next to the equipment, we also do not need a network of hydrogen refilling. A lot of you will know that there is a big discussion about future propulsion, which means at the end of the day, discussing about biofuels, discussing about hydrogen combustion, discussing about fuel cell. We ourselves see us as a bridge technology on the way to future systems there. As said, as we are on demand, we do not need a network and we do not have to store the hydrogen and the oxygen as we are inserting it directly into the engine via the clean air path. So what is happening there, and this is coming to the thermodynamic effect on the second side, for everybody to explain it a little bit, by adding hydrogen and oxygen on a very high level, explained on an easy way, we make the ignition of the fuel more ignition friendly. As some of you might know, that generally fuel, especially diesel, is not very ignition friendly. By adding hydrogen and the oxygen, we are able to make it more ignition friendly. This means the ignition, and as I said, this now not on a thermodynamical deepness, but on a high level explained. Due to this, the ignition will happen a little bit earlier, and there will be a little bit more time for the mixture of hydrogen, oxygen, and fuel to burn. By doing this and having a little bit more time, we are reaching two main topics. Topic number one, we are burning more complete, which is on the pollution side, optimizing and reducing the pollutions. And by burning a little bit longer, we are also optimizing the transformation of input to output energy, let's say. And by this, we are reducing the fuel consumption and directly correlated the fuel consumption related emissions. So this is what basically is happening by our unit. And this, as you can see in the customer value, as I did mention, we want to transform technology into customer value. This is at the end of the day reduced fuel costs, emission savings, and it's very easy to use as it is an upfit logic for every equipment with a combustion engine at the end of the day. This I also will show you on some of the next slides. Before we come to pictures about the installation, let's call it in action, I would like to show you a little bit our product portfolio, which you can see here from the left, which is called HG2R, then the HG1, HG4, and HG6. Now you might think, how is the nomenclature done? So basically the HG1 is the original product. This is one electrolysis unit, / call it a reactor. And basically it's a modular concept. So it means if you look on the right side, the 4C and the 6C are a multiplication of 4 times or 6 times the reactor. And the HG2 on the left side is running on a reduced stack profile, so easified set on half a reactor. By doing this, we are able to perform in different engine sizes, as you can see, from the blue unit on the left, starting with roughly 2-liter displacement of the engine, which is, for example, delivery vans like a Mercedes Sprinter or comparable, up to 90-liter, where we are talking about big power generation, rail, big mining equipment, and things like this. So our current installations are, for example, in mining, as I mentioned before, one of the big yellow units, in oil and gas, Class 8 trucks, power generation, smaller trucks, also refrigeration and reefers, construction equipment, buses. At the moment, we are targeting and doing further research on topics as agriculture and rail. And for sure, we are also working on commercial marine and inland waterway applications. Here you can see some of the installations, just showing how the unit is mounted. So we have different mounting locations. As you will see in the next pictures, we can go to the frame, as it's done here in France, for example. But here you can also see we have the possibility to mount the unit on the back of the driver cabin. We also have different positions on the frame mounts. So we are very flexible to mount the unit, for example, on trucks. Here you can also see, as I mentioned before, it's not only trucks. Also very interesting is harbor cranes. This is, for example, an installation in the port of Rochefort in France, where it's used for the combustion-propelled harbor cranes, for example. Here you can see a mobile crane installation, which we are mounted on. You can see it underneath the driver cabin there in front. Also a new installation over in Vietnam on a port loader of Kalmar, where one of the HG1 units is installed. And here you can also see, for example, the yellow part up is a unit installed on a mining truck in Australia, for example. Also, as we did mention, oil and gas with drill rigs, for example, is installations we are on. Here you can see a genset, a generator, a big one. And also we are used in a race truck at the Rally Dakar from our French partner IPMD and the race team. This is basically about the unit and the hardware. As I said, producing hydrogen on demand and directly injecting it into the engine. Besides having the hardware unit, we also use our ECU, so the electronic control unit of the hardware, to feed information in our own IT and software solution. This is called Hydrolytica, and Hydrolytica basically has two main reasons. One is the condition monitoring of the unit itself. So we can remotely see, is the unit activated? Is it running? We can see, does the unit need any kind of a service? and all of these topics. And second topic, we also use Hydrolytica to get information from the telematics system of the customer to generate a comparison between a baseline fuel consumption without hydrogen and the new fuel consumption with using hydrogen. And by this, we are able to also identify the reduction of fuel. Here you can see only a short overview about the system, which is friendly, intuitive, programmed. We have a service log panel. We have quick access also from the mobile phone so that the customer and the user can control his full fleet. And there's a flexible hierarchy system also inside the companies to control it. There is an interactive map to control where is the unit running at the moment, and all of these topics up to a carbon credit automation in the background. That's about the product and the software in short words. I hope it was not too fast, but using the time. And now I would like to hand over to Bernd, giving a little bit more information about dynaCERT and the company in general.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. As you know, product really very interesting. And of course, hardware and software is explained by Kevin. Company itself, of course, consists of various people, means we have, of course, a board of management. Kevin and myself, you see, a lot of you guys know and remember Jim Payne, who is still the CEO and moving over and being already the chairman and moving over more into the board of directors role. We have also a new or quite new CFO, very experienced guy, John Amadeo. Therefore, us four is running or are running the company on an executive and operative level, as said, based in Toronto and of course being globally in charge. Secondly, we have a board of directors with various competences additionally in the team. Some of you may know them. James Tenzi, also very experienced in carbon credits generation and the processes, with being the CEO of Carbon Done Right and other Oxford and other professorships worldwide. Tanya, former TSX manager and also senior director of CBO, as therefore also very much linked to our business. And we have additional technical and technological competence. On the one side, Seth Brew, who is working with us on the carbon credit program, which we are working on and preparing for carbon credits to be applied for and then finally generated with Vera and other organizations. We did win also Dr. Ingo Windruf and Dr. Gerhard Philipp from Kevin's and my engine history. Therefore, they are very experienced thermodynamics guys and fuel cell experts, knowing as Kevin and myself a lot the applications, a lot the engine and the whole propulsion system, and by that optimizing the effect between hydrogen being sucked into the combustion chamber and optimizing the fuel and burning process, as well as the emissions and pollutions. Therefore, a lot of competence in the team. But maybe the most important to you for that ones who know the company since a while, what happened, what is going on, what happened since last time. On the one hand side, of course, we continue our showing up at various shows and fairs, means and of course generating additional leads. Therefore, we restarted and reworked on an Ontario trucking and logistics campaign, trying to win also some of the guys or more around our door in Toronto and in Ontario, Western Canada. Secondly, we reorganized and did win also new leads in Australia, then the mining and maybe also hopefully some went on the water. Let's see. We will show up over the weekend and beginning next week at the PDEC. Therefore, if some of you will be there, of course, happy to meet you there and talk with you. Secondly, we go to the ConExpo. We'll attend there in Las Vegas, biggest or second biggest construction fair worldwide after the Bauma here in Munich, where we showed up and presented, and of course at the ConExpo as well. Therefore, if some of you are there, as said, happy to meet you and looking forward to meeting you and additional leads. Then we were quite active in Asia and are active in Asia Pacific, means we have very close ties meanwhile with Vietnam. as you may know, of course, the more and more emerging markets are also quite interesting for us. As you know, we have an upfit kit, means continuing existing fossil fuels of trucks of different vehicles with more and more emission regulation also in such countries. Our product is very, very reasonable and very well accepted. Therefore, we did first, in general, we want to thank the Canadian Trade Commissioners, the EDC, where we work very closely with in Canada as well as in worldwide and in Vietnam in this specific case. Secondly, we investigated seriously which market potential is there, and we selected and found, and various guys applied for becoming a partner to us. On the one side, on the installation and service side, as well as on the sales agent side. And we had already within short term, in 3-4 months, of course, being quite often there, Kevin and myself and the whole team, being in Vietnam, showing up, having with the right partners. We won already the first 10 pilot installations, more to come short term. You know, our business is usually winning or getting interest in the market. Secondly, convincing some guys to do a proper field test or pilot installations. And if the pilots are running well, then usually you get then following out of that into series delivery. Therefore, reasonable applications, also having first pilot discussions and more than discussions with gensets, also in stationary power generation. And as said, very likely to be able to deliver then also for series soon. It's Vietnam. Of course, Asia Pacific is much more than Vietnam, but Vietnam really very, very nicely for us, good start. Secondly, being to Japan, being there very closely together with the Japanese Export Trade Organization, also having met various potential partners there in Japan, of course, as well as Japanese and Vietnamese guys also supplying in the whole ASEAN and Southeast Asian region. Thirdly, as mentioned before, change in the Australian distributor and network setup, winning also additional partners for distribution and dealership and installation, as well as, of course, having supplies to first mining and other OEM companies in Australia. Maybe that to Asia Pacific. Secondly, of course, Americas, being, as you know, Canadian company, of course, supplying in Canada and in the US, having also won a new distributor in Mexico, also who is also in charge of Texas, therefore approaching Mexico with a frame agreement with him, which we announced recently in the press, and maybe some of you know. Therefore, executing this delivery program, having there also first trial installations, and Kevin and I will meet the dealer and various distributor and various of the potential and existing customers there, having strategies and workshops to continue and to expand and to explore the market, and also showing up there at the logistics show in Mexico City. Then we hired for whole Latin America a new sales manager on our own payroll, being based in Colombia, US guy, very familiar with the region, having also conducted first market analysis, having met and managed to meet already first potential leads. Also maybe very interesting application for us in natural reserves, where there's independent autonomous power supply with decentral gensets, therefore also in various sizes, as Kevin explained, having 2-3 more megawatt installations, quite reasonable fuel consumption, therefore reasonable applications for us as well. Also first trial installations in advance and in negotiation in Ecuador. Also they're having very close connection now to the Chamber of Transportation and to the ministries over there, having their next meetings. Therefore, as it's described, and as you know, having the proper technology to reduce fuel consumption and emissions, but also continuing, as said, with the existing fleets, might it be mobile vehicles or stationary gensets, which of course is a huge advantage compared to buying new equipment or having hydrogen trucks where you don't have the hydrogen. We create our hydrogen ourselves with a limited portion of distilled water. Therefore, very interesting technology, as we think, but also, and the more important, customers think. Then, of course, also Europe and Africa. In Germany, we have already, of course, a customer base. We did win a next logistics company where we have in March next pilot and trial installations on a truck fleet. In France, we have a very reasonable and competent partner, IP&D, with whom we have also various installations already. Kevin explained a few of them a few minutes ago. We do there also more and more harbor equipment and mining equipment. And with the French speaking, and there's very tight links between France and Northern Africa, also expanding the Northern African French-speaking countries together with him. And having said that, of course, our target is and stays the same. On the one side, we further develop our internal processes and capabilities, therefore improving and expanding was already good, but of course being scaled up capabilities for the supply chain and the production for bigger volumes to come, where Kevin as COO and the whole team, of course, did a tremendous job. And we, as you know and can imagine, talking about bigger volumes in Vietnam and elsewhere, it's not only reasonable with bigger volumes as soon as we reach them to do everything in Canada and then ship it with high or long or high travel costs to Asia. Therefore, also first localization discussions there, first checks for potential suppliers. And why do we do that? Of course, we want and have to increase the volume and the turnover. That's clear. That's the target. And we want to have subscriptions out of the software and further working on the potential process for applying and generating then carbon credits. And with that, of course, we want to increase the share price and the company's value. That's what we are working for. And happy for your questions, Kevin and I. Thank you for your attention.
Right, so that was a great presentation. Thank you very much for that. We will be looking forward to the Q&A sessions. So there are already a few questions in. We have 6 minutes. Let's tackle them. First, obviously you discussed about Jim Payne role. Can you just specify what he's be doing? He's going to step down from CEO and be chairman. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the plan. There is first discussions. Jim went 70, which is of course a long career, and he's already chairman. And succession discussions start now.
Perfect. Can you confirm or tell us how many units, HT units, are out being used by clients right now in total?
Actually, yeah, it depends a little bit. We have roughly 1,500 to 2,000 installations being done, which shows on the one side, of course, a lot of references, but we have to consider, of course, a lot of applications and geographies. Therefore, yeah, we are happy having now reasonable additional pilots out and trial installations, which will be the basis for on reasonable and successful pilots to get into bigger volumes in series supply, and therefore quite happy. But as I said, 1,500 to 2,000 installations roughly, but over the last years, which is the company itself is more than 20 years. Therefore, it's quite a number, but also quite a time.
Okay, and then what would you estimate be the revenues of those units out currently?
Yeah, on the figures, we will publish our figures soon in the regular process and at the AGM. But we are still, as we need, of course, more volume. We are having, as a lot of you are of the audience is invested into our company, we have quite a broad base of investors and are grateful for that. But of course, we need and want to have more volume, and with that generating profits and cash. Therefore, yeah, please attend everybody the AGM online and in person, where we will publish our figures as well for the last year and for the future.
Perfect. Mr. Clark is asking the status on the Vera stamping. Do you have any news on this side?
As a first, the explanation is the process itself, how we calculate, how we measure fuel consumption, and how we calculate out of the reduced and measured fuel reduction, the corresponding CO2 This process is Vera certified, which is of course very positive, and a lot of the audience did follow that, or we explained it a few times. Secondly, we are working with an own software team and also with some partners on the process of collecting the data, which we do, of course, of processing the data and streamlining then, that the output out of our Hydrolytica software and our process is ready to automatically apply in the future for the carbon credits that the authorities could, on an audited base, give us or hand us over the carbon credits. We are working on that process significantly. I know that a lot of you guys will think, yeah, we said that since a while, which is correct. We work on this process since a while, means only for the certification, roughly 4 years, but we have the certification of the process, of the method, which is of course important, and we go ahead full speed and on this complex topic, and we have a clear path and we follow that path. Therefore, it's difficult to say it's in 3 months or in half a year, but definitely we will. As we are working intensively on it, and we look forward to announce something in the course of the year.
Perfect. Thank you for this. Now, can you confirm us how much cash you have on hand and the burn rate monthly?
As a first, we have cash. We have cash. Second nevertheless means if somebody wants to invest into our company, we are open and happy to discuss, of course. Secondly, we are still not at break even. Therefore, there's some cash burn, but improving compared to whatever the past. Therefore, we are on the right track. Means, of course, we have and we want to increase sales and volume. That's why we are happy having quite a number, and as we showed, quite a number of pilot and trial installations out in the field, which is the basis for series supply. And secondly, we worked on cost reductions where reasonable, but as you know, in a growing startup with a clear growth plan, it's not the prior target to shrink the company or to reduce cost where it's not reasonable. Of course, we have a clear eye on cost savings and using the money reasonably. But we are planning for growth, and therefore, of course, spending the money to grow the company.
All right, thank you very much. And then maybe one question for you, Kevin. We do have Germany should be a primary target market. When can we hear some news about this market specifically?
I think Bernd showed that we are in the final, let's say, preparations of another trial installation also here in Germany. And for sure, Germany is an important market, but I see the European market overall, especially combined with Germany, France, Belgium. And I'm sure that we will hear some further updates about these markets in the next 2 to 3 quarters of the year.
Okay, perfect. So time is up. Thank you very much for the presentation. Once again, we will be continuing to follow the story of dynaCERT and the news release that should come within the next few weeks or few months. Thank you very much for joining, and maybe see you next time. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. See you. Bye.